Hello, everybody. Welcome to Black Money Daily, economic news from our point of view. I am your host, Cherie. We release a podcast every weekday at lunchtime so that you can get the news you need quick, fast, and in a hurry. So let's start off with today's news. First of all, there was a presidential debate last night, and the only reason we're talking about this is because of Wall Street, business industries, and its effect on Black American economics. So the markets are concerned about Trump's refusal in recent days to commit to conceding the election if he loses. That could lead to a long period of uncertainty after voters have casted their ballots. And when there's uncertainty in corporate America and Wall Street, then it does trickle down to Main Street and Black America. Let's talk about the bad news first. There's a lot of economic uncertainty. Disney is laying off 28,000 people because of the pandemic and its hammering of its parks and resorts business. Shell said on Wednesday that it will slash as many as 9,000 jobs as it accelerates a shift away from fossil fuels. U.S. Airlines promised to keep on workers until October 1st when they accepted federal bailout funds earlier this year. However, who knows what's going to happen there? And economists are warning that layoffs could jump again this fall as the government support for businesses wane and the pandemic continues to hit vulnerable firms. But there is some good news. The huge slump in demand for oil and gas caused by COVID-19 restrictions is pushing some of Europe's biggest energy companies to speed up a shift to cleaner fuels. Well, that means new opportunities not only in Europe, but also in the United States. And it's time for us to grab it. So coming tomorrow, there's going to be a lot of economic data on personal income and spending, manufacturing, jobless claims, and it will give investors, including us, a lot to sort through. So the 10K Project will discuss all of this and more with economist Dr. Cherie Phillips on Monday, October 5th at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. You can register by visiting the10kproject.com and selecting the event called Is There Any Hope for Black America? Again, that's going to happen on Monday, October 5th, 6 p.m., where we can dive into what we expect from the markets and how we as Black Americans can win. So let's move on to story number 2, which is about pensions at risk. There's an asset manager called Allianz that has been accused of making reckless bets with the pensions of American teachers, truck drivers, subway workers, and firefighters during the coronavirus market meltdown earlier this year. The Metropolitan Transportation Authority, or MTA, which operates the New York City subway, and the Retirement Fund for Public School Teachers in Arkansas are among the investors seeking damages from Allianz Global Investors for losses totaling over $3 billion, according to court records and CNN Business. Pension fund managers said in court documents that they were promised returns regardless of market direction and volatility, along with protection against sudden and extreme market downturns. They allege Allianz deviated from its investment mandate and made decisions as markets plummeted that exposed the funds to additional losses. This could mean millions of Black people may not have their pensions to rely on. So what do? Well, I did a quick Google search and found an Investopedia article that has 3 suggestions. Number 1, if your pension is underfunded, the Employee Retirement Income Security Act of 1974, or ERISA, protects traditional defined benefit pension plans. However, special rules do apply if your plan fails because of your employer's bankruptcy. Number 2, if your employer goes bankrupt, there is something called the Pension Benefit Guaranty Corporation that may pay employees any pension benefits they've been promised that the employer can't make good on, up to a guaranteed amount per year. Number 3, if your pension falls into a loophole, in some instances, if the organization you work for has chosen not to be covered by federal pension law, State laws may apply, but you'll need to check your local laws. If you have a pension, we highly recommend you read the Investopedia article in its entirety. It has additional resources, including a resource called Pension Help America that connects people to counseling services and legal assistance when they have questions about their pension or need help with benefits. We'll post a link in the show notes. We also suggest you research other sources of information, talk to your employer, and perhaps talk to an attorney. Finally, don't depend on one source of income. Start a side hustle, get a part-time job, but make it happen. The show today is sponsored by the 10K Project. We are at the10kproject.com. We have an upcoming event Wednesday, September 30th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. The topic is personal finance strategies to close the wealth gap. It's featuring Madam Money's Tara Jackson. There's no charge to attend. It's a webinar. You can find it and register at the10kproject.com. Little celebrity news here, of course, with some big business ownership. Let's talk about Jay-Z, who has appointed the first Black executive producer of Super Bowl Halftime Show. Veteran live event producer Jesse Collins is joining forces with award-winning director Hamish Hamilton for the halftime show of the biggest sporting game of the year, which is set to take place on February 7th in Tampa, Florida. Jay-Z's Rock Nation Entertainment Company is set to co-produce the Super Bowl halftime show as part of the deal that he inked with the NFL in August 2019. Jay-Z said of his NFL partnership, quote, "With its global reach, the NFL has the platform and opportunity to inspire change across the country. Rock Nation has shown that entertainment and enacting change are not mutually exclusive ideas. Instead, we unify them. This partnership is an opportunity to strengthen the fabric of communities across America," close quote. Well, I say sports is a big business, yet our ownership levels are minimal. Is this deal progress towards getting a bigger piece of the sports pie? I can't wait to hear what you brothers have to say in the comments about this story. So let's move on to story number 4. It is all about mortgages becoming due and mortgage forbearance. Are your delayed mortgage payments coming due? CNN business columnist Anna Bainey has some recommendations for you. The biggest one is not to run, but to work with your lender if possible. If your immediate economic hardship is resolved, let's say you're finally back to work or you feel more secure about your job and income, you are likely ready to exit forbearance and speak with your lender about how to repay what you owe. Could you pay what you were paying before forbearance, or could you pay a little bit more per month? Anna says. She spoke with the Senior Vice President and Chief Credit Officer at Fannie Mae, Malloy Evans, who stressed that those covered by the CARES Act are not required to pay the deferred amount in one single balloon payment. Fannie Mae, for example, has options available to tailor your repayment to your individual circumstances. So for example, you could talk with your lender about paying a little bit more each month over a 12-month period until you have paid the deferred amount. Finally, if you are struggling financially, you may opt to extend your forbearance plan for another 6 months, according to Fannie Mae. This is again under Fannie Mae's rules, where there is a policy that you have 12 months of relief available if you need it. But extending your forbearance will require you to speak with your servicer and confirm that you are eligible. We are going to say this at the 10K Project. It is important for us to remain in our homes if possible. It's essential for generational wealth. We encourage you to be proactive, call the lender, make notes of the calls that you have with your service provider. Make sure you note the date you spoke with the person, the time, who you spoke with, and what was discussed and decided on. Let's move to the next story, all about gig workers and subcontractors. So if you're a gig worker or you regularly hire subcontractors, you might want to listen up to this. The Department of Labor on Tuesday published a proposed ruling to define who's an independent contractor in America. The department has never adopted a rule defining the term for general industry use, and the Supreme Court last spoke on this issue nearly 60 years ago. California, for example, passed a law called AB-5 last year, which requires companies to treat a broad range of workers who previously were recognized as independent contractors as employees. However, some businesses stopped hiring Californians. Uber and Lyft announced that they were suspending operations in the state, and the California state legislature had to make several amendments establishing dozens of job-specific exemptions. Well, the Department of Labor wants to determine a worker's classification based on if the worker is economically dependent on the putative employer for work. To probe that difference, their proposed test focuses primarily on a worker's control of his work and whether or not his opportunity for profit or loss results from his own initiative or investment. Again, this is just a proposal, but it could have a major impact on businesses, subcontractors, and employees nationwide. And finally, every Wednesday is Small Business Wednesday, so we come to you with a small business tip. And here it is. On a scale of 1 to 10, how serious are you about your business? No, honestly, tell us. How serious are you about making a certain amount of revenue? How serious are you about discovering what your market wants and then giving it to them? How serious are you about using your time productively? Anything less than a 10 is unacceptable. Yes, I said it. Yes, I said it in my Michael Basin voice. Tomorrow begins the last quarter of 2020. Will you end the year up or down? The biggest thing you can do this Small Business Wednesday is have a full-on commitment to Black excellence in the fourth quarter of 2020. Yes, it's hard, but it's absolutely necessary. So that's it for today's podcast. We'd love to hear your comments about today's topics. Do you believe the presidential race will have a huge impact on Black economics? Should pension workers be worried? Is Jay-Z's partnership with the NFL and his selection of a Black executive producer a step in the right direction towards ownership? Do you have any recommendations for people who have mortgage forbearances? Are you following the independent contractor rules closely? What small businesses do you have for our listeners? Tell us what you think. And don't forget to rate, comment, subscribe, and tell a friend or two about Black Money Daily. Thanks, and we'll see you tomorrow.